Anyway, sorry, I didn't mention it, but I've had a. All right, it's 9 o'clock. I will call this meeting in order. Can we get a roll call, please?
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Linda Gonzalez, alternate.
District 2, Supervisor Church.
Leonie Gray, alternate.
District 3, Supervisor Lopez.
Priscilla Barba, alternate.
District 5, Supervisor Adams. City of Combat by the Sea.
Here.
City of Del Rio.
Here.
City of Gonzalez. City of Greenfield. Here. City of King City.
Present.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Present.
City of Pacific Grove. City of Salinas. City of Sand City. Here. City of Seaside. City of Soledad.
Here.
Ambac. Here. Caltrans District 5.
Here.
Monterey Bay Air Resource District.
David Frisbee, alternate.
Monterey Peninsula Airport. Monterey City Mass Transit.
Here.
City of Watsonville. CSUMB.
Nicole Hollingsworth, alternate.
Okay, Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you join me in the pledge of allegiance? Pray together. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we go to public comments. We have 2 minutes for members of the public to speak on any item that is not on the agenda. Any member of the public like to speak on any item not on the agenda? All right, I see no one online, no one in chambers. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the board like to pull any items from the consent agenda? Any member of the public to speak on any of the consent agenda items? Can I ask if any members of the public to speak on any of the consent agenda items? Seeing none online and none in the chambers. We'll bring this back to the board for action.
So moved to yes, all on the agenda. Consent agendas.
I will the same.
First with Smith, second with Carbone. Roll call, please.
District 1, alternate Gonzalez.
Yes.
District 2, alternate Gray.
Yes.
District 3, alternate Barba.
Yes.
District 4, alternate Mora.
Yes.
District 5, Supervisor Adams. City of Combat by the Sea.
Yes.
City of Del Rio.
Yes.
City of Gonzalez.
Yes.
City of Greenfield.
No.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina. City of Monterey.
Present here.
City of Pacific Grove. City of Salinas. City of Sand City. Yes. City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Soledad.
Yes.
Okay. motion.
Thank you. You just finished your item, Andrew. Yeah.
Oh, good one there.
We'll now move on to item 4, authorize executive director to submit recommendations to Caltrans on State Route 68 corridor improvement project. Recommendations are select alternative 1 for roundabouts, preferred project alternative that best meets the project objectives, identify and pursue funding for phase 1, including intersections of San Benicio Road, Corral de Terra, Laurel's Grade, and constructs constructs along across wildlife crossings. Ensure that the roundabout designed for alternative 1 enables upgrades to hybrid roundabouts. Continue to work with emergency responders to address project impacts on emergency response times. And request that Caltrans pursue interim operational improvements along the corridor focused on signal coordination, including a pilot project to implement adaptive signal operations. Doug?
Good morning. My name is Doug Bilsam, Principal Engineer at TAMC, and as you can tell from just the item and the recommendation, this is quite a bit on the plate. There's also a draft environmental document if you want to know more about the project. So what we're going to try and do is keep this at a very high level and try to walk you through what's been going on Highway 68. It's really 3 projects, 3 things we're going to be talking about, but mostly what was in this draft environmental document. So, yeah, so we go back to the beginning of the origins of this work. The Transportation Safety Investment Plan was developed in June 2016. And that's the cornerstone of the passage of Measure X. And in there, they identified that the community, it wasn't staff, community identified safety issues and improved traffic flow along 68. And then a year later, we finished the State Route 68 Scenic Highway Plan. And that added an element that determined that Highway 68 is really a barrier for the wildlife that lives on each side of 68. So that kind of defined a project that we're working on now, the Scenic 68 Corridor Improvement Project. Okay. So here's the study area. We're looking at Highway 68 from Jocelyn Canyon Road to San Benicio. And that's 9 intersections that are signalized. You'll note if you go way back, originally the corridor study had said Torero Drive needed to be addressed there. We could talk about that, but that's a separate issue on Toro Park. So it's already a second project we're going to talk about, but that's separated from this. And so we're just looking at those contents. So these are 9 signalized intersections that are along here, and mostly we're looking at intersection improvements because widening the highway or doing a bypass is just environmentally infeasible. Go to the next one. It's listen. So the project objective, what are we trying to do on this project? Address safety concerns, improve traffic flow, and connect wildlife. Okay. There we go. So if there's any doubt, we've just done a lot of community outreach, and you know, do we need to do something on Highway 68? When I've gone out to these things, you know, what we do is a secondary question. It's just do something, and it's really a issue that affects a lot of people's lives on a daily basis. So what we have is really not only just a problem on 68, but we're starting to get regional problems with congestion. So when you look at the congestion on Highway 1 and this congestion on Highway 68, you start seeing people impacting Toro Park here. All of a sudden, this queue here backs up to a point where people start going into this neighborhood and impacting them on a daily basis, and they start feeling landlocked is what the community was telling us at our recent meetings. Then you go over here, and I also met with HOA in this area, and they're saying, you know, there's a lot of cut through traffic here because people avoid the traffic on Highway 1. And then somewhat of a surprise since COVID, but let's see. There we go. So now we have this rerouted traffic. People use Carmel Valley Road and Laurel's Grade to avoid this traffic. And that's a huge rerouting, but we're seeing it and we saw this huge increase, maybe within a year or two of this right turn here. So you start looking at this and you say, what can we do now? What can we do now to address that? And where we're at is looking at adaptive. I think maybe some of you have heard of it, but it's coordinating the signals, basically. Can we get more out of the signals we have without an expensive construction project or something that would have environmental impacts? So we've been working with Caltrans and we're working to get a pilot project for adaptive because it's somewhat of a new technology and Caltrans has to go through, it's a little bit more difficult to procure the equipment for adaptive, but we can do that without environmental documents. So it's not an either or, it's an and. So we're thinking, let's do adaptive, let's put it in there, get the most benefit we can as soon as we can. And then what does adaptive do? They coordinate, the equipment coordinates the signals. They coordinate the signals to serve the primary traffic flow. You kind of pick up a direction, you get the signals all kind of going in a line. They adjust it. The adaptive is able to adjust that coordination throughout the day and special events that can come up and it can do it. It basically takes time by the side street, so there is a little impact right off the bat. The side street waits a little bit longer because you need a little bit more time on the main line to coordinate that. Another part of it that's really interesting is it's related, but it's connected vehicles. So we're starting to get to these smart vehicles where the vehicles can talk to the signals. I'm approaching and although it wouldn't be specifically adaptive, it's kind of interesting to see that the smarter cars can tell you what speed to go. If they can talk to this adaptive system. I've been in a car that does that. It says, hey, drive 45 miles per hour. And sure enough, if you drive the right speed, you'll get the best progression in the light. So it's exciting technology that I think would be a good option on this. The signals are spaced a little farther, but it could help. But we still need a long-term solution. It's adaptive. If it's not the silver bullet that solves everything, it doesn't, you can't create time. So there's only so much that a signal can do. We still recommend pursuing a long-term solution. And that's where this big document comes involved. It was an environmental report, and it looked at two. One was to put roundabouts at the 9 signalized intersections. And then the other is to widen the road on 68 to 2 lanes. It's 1 lane between the intersections, go out to 2 lanes, go through the intersection, then merge back down to 1. Same thing on the other side, 1 lane to 2 lanes, back down to 1. So the big difference in the way a signal versus a roundabout works is that the signal has these conflicting movements in the middle of the intersection, and it kind of sets the green light so that 2 movements can go at a time. So you're limited to 2 movements going through an intersection at a time, and you kind of go around in a cycle. And the roundabout is able, so these conflict points too are also the more likely to have high-speed collisions that are serious and fatalities happen. So you have head-ons, you have T-bones, you have people running red lights is predominantly a big concern with signals. And the roundabout, since you're making basically right turns, you're constantly flowing and you avoid this, but that doesn't mean you eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. But for the most part, you have fender benders where this car merges with this car and you hit each other. You have the bikes, when the bikes here, you have some problems with the right turns with the bikes going here. Here, the bike goes in and merges, which some bicyclists like, some people, don't, but we'll get into a couple of those. But that's the main difference between the two of them and how they operate. And again, the signal cycles, again, red, yellow, green, and the, or green, yellow, red. And the roundabout is just kind of a constant flow, but at a slower speed. So the issues with signals, the coordination is really good in one direction. So I always say, you know, like get smart. I don't know if everybody remembers that, where all the doors open at the right time, then he turns around and they all close on his nose. That's kind of what signals are. They can go in one direction, but just the law of physics is that you can't really coordinate unless the perfect conditions are there. You don't get the coordination in the other direction. You serve only two non-conflicting movements at a time. The cycling, every time you have a yellow and a red, there's just a time where no cars are there. There's also sometimes when you're sitting there in the left turn and you don't see any cars coming at you and you say, why can't I get a green? It's kind of the way signal works. You get 10 to 20% just a lost time and inefficiency that's built in to the signals. And with this project, there's going to be significant, you know, if we widen and then go back in or you put in new signals, it's significant impacts and high cost to get that extra lane in there. So this is the signal alternative. Then the issues with roundabouts, typically the side street is going to have to wait for a gap in the traffic flow. On 68, you have a lot of trucks, so every time a truck is kind of coming in front of the truck, there should be decent gaps. And our simulations show that ends up, you know, increasing the traffic flow at a critical intersection. But I think with either one, we got to realize that there is going to be congestion. We're not trying to build our way out of congestion. We're just trying to improve the traffic flow as best we can. A roundabout always slows down traffic, even when traffic's really like middle of the night, say there's no cars out here, you still have to slow down and go through the intersection at a lower speed. That also means that it slows down everybody, including emergency response vehicles. So we've been working with the fire chief regarding that. We addressed some of those issues by going to a hybrid, which we'll talk about, but it just slows everybody down. And then, you know, again, to build the roundabout, there is some impacts on the corners. You're widening the intersection. There we go. So everybody kind of is familiar with the one lane roundabout. And that's typical when you see pictures like the ones I just showed you. Over here, I'm going to jump over to the hybrid. I think a lot of people, this is actually a turbo, but it's the same concept. You have one lane going into two lanes and back down to one. This is at Pebble Beach, Bowman Highway. That's a hybrid because it's not two lanes in all the way around. At 218 and 68, this would be the only one where we actually have two lane roundabout because of the intersection of two state highways. So that's what we had studied this throughout the environmental report was basically a single lane roundabout except for 218. And we were kind of, well, we'll get there, but the hybrid's been introduced, but we've been thinking about it all along. So why hybrids now? We're looking at the hybrids actually go back a little bit. One thing I didn't notice is that you have conflict points. So a single lane roundabout has the least conflict points, the less merge lanes. The two lane has the most conflict points. And then the hybrid is in between those two. So we think that this pushes more traffic than this alternative. So on a phase one, which is on the east side, we are promoting Caltrans. We'd like to recommend to Caltrans, and they've been working with us to finalize the design with a hybrid for that first phase. And the reason why it builds on the success of Holman Highway roundabout, and the design that we did for this, it kind of started before the highway design manual, which is pretty much the guidance that Caltrans uses. Their old highway design manual was a little bit of a handcuff, and we kind of waited until that came out, which recently came out. Now we're trying to interpret it, you know, what it means in terms of hybrid design. But Caltrans is on board with us and working with us on that. So we're going to add that, and somehow we'll have it evaluated in the final environmental document. twice. Yeah. Okay, all right. So, the one thing that would be well, wildlife crossings. Yeah, so the one thing that's consistent is both alternatives. We have wildlife crossings. So at 5 new crossings and 3 upgrades, we will have culverts or underneath. These would all be crossings underneath Highway 68, and they're very close. And in most cases, they are integral to an intersection improvement. They can be built independently. But yeah, it's while you're there, you get the synergy of doing both of them, but they can be separated out. And this is what they would be looking like. Big enough for all these critters to get through safely. All right, so want to point out the extensive community engagement we've done. We've done 3 public hearings. One of them was in Salinas in Spanish as a primary language. It was there. We subsequently met with HOAs. We've met with our partners at the airport and other key stakeholders, some property owners. We recently went back to South Salinas and had a Spanish speaking event for 101 and 68 that also had food and daycare. So we've really gone out of our way to get the public involved in this. I think they've had opportunities to give us feedback. I think you're going to hear from a couple of the people in the public that have had comments on it. But we've done that as a big effort. So where are we in the process? So you might have seen this. We kind of developed this a while ago to give you an idea of where you're at in the project. It's really frustrating here. We're at 101 south of Salinas. We'd love to just jump right here to construction, but there's a lot of facets to a project. And we're right here as we've done the preliminary design, and the alternatives have been evaluated in this document. And we're right here where we're working with the project team on Caltrans. I'm kind of part of it, but the ultimate decision rests with Caltrans. They operate and maintain the highway, so it's their decision. We're bringing in their input as a key stakeholder and a sponsor to this project. So we're asking, as part of the recommendations here, is what direction would you like staff? We want to make sure you're on board on where we're going. And then once we do that, we go to right-of-way permits and final design, and that's what we're saying. This final design work on revisions, which is pretty typical of a project. The difference between a single lane and a hybrid is part of this final design that happens. There might be some environmental work that needs to be done on that to maybe a curb changes or something. We have to revise the environmental document, but it's not going to be not expected to be significant. So phase 1, when we look at what needs to be done the most, we get AM congestion as backed up. Anyone that took it this morning, it backs up about 2 miles from Toro Park back here. There's a merge, there's Torero, there's San Benancio. There's a lot going on here. I'm working with Toro Park on a separate project to try to get rid of the cut through traffic. We made a lot of progress. I think we're going to be successful in that. And the public outreach has been really good on that. We did not want to include a roundabout or a signal here, in case you were thinking, because that just promotes more people. You say, oh, thanks for cutting through the traffic through our residential neighborhood, and here's a signal to help you get back on 68. So what we're really trying to do is actually block the traffic from getting back on 68. But the AM congestion in the morning backs up this way. PM goes the other way. Oh, there we go. Well, jumped a little bit, but so the PM is starts about Laurel's grade is where the conflicts start, and it'll back up all the way to Pasadena beyond. Yesterday afternoon, I saw it go all the way to Pasadena, but you get this. You get these long queues. I call them moving queues. People just slow down. They just know, hey, there's no urgency, and everybody's starting to go like 35 miles per hour instead of jumping and stopping and going. So you get kind of a slinky or a shock wave, what you call it, but basically this whole corridor just gets hit in the afternoon and in the morning, it just gets here. But once you get past the log jam, things fly pretty well. So what we have is 3 intersections. All right. So we're looking at San Benito, Corral de Tierra, Laurel's grade. These 3 would be our phase 1. It would be that's really where the demand is over capacity. That's where it just is crunch time. That's why the hybrid is like we like to start off with the hybrid. And that is what we're asking here while we do the adaptive, which could be the whole corridor. We got to work with Caltrans on how we phase that, but either way, this first phase is expected to be all that we can get as far as the roundabouts for a long time. So it makes sense to do the adaptive and commit to getting the most out of the existing for the whole entire corridor while we work to get this in place. So next steps. Wish I hadn't put the animation on them. So we're going to assist Caltrans implement adaptive signal pilot project. Takes a little bit of effort to get that pilot equipment in place. Complete work on the preferred alternative, which we're recommending to be roundabout. So finish. We've invested over $1 million in this document. It doesn't look like this is $1 million, but it is. And this is a draft. So to get to the final, it's really not much more effort, and it gets you a complete document. You get to a point where you can implement the roundabout. You don't have to, but you just have all the environmental clearance to do that. And then you have the design for the first phase. So in case we want to do that, the adaptive doesn't work as perfectly as we'd hope, then we have the roundabout for phase 1. And then I'll continue working with Toro Park to resolve the cut through traffic. I hope to get back to you on that, although it's separated. I think there could have been questions about that. So we want to get a pilot project this summer. I think we're going to be able to get that. We're really close to a recommendation to the group, and we can do a pilot project there. We can kind of test out a couple things on what it would do to Highway 68 this summer. Separate project though. And as you said, it's a lot to the staff recommendation. I'm not going to read it there because the chair did such a good job, but I'm going to end there and ask questions.
Thank you, Doug. First, I'd like to go to the public for any comments from them. We have some speaker cards. I'd like to start with Barry Jones. This,
Yes. Okay, good morning. How long do I have, sir?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, let's start.
They'll be putting that on.
Okay, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Barry Jones, and I'm Pasadena resident. I represent Pasadena Homeowner Association and Concept Golf, who are the new owners of Pasadena Club, the club at Pasadena. So the proposal you've heard, I'm really talking about the pilot. We fully support the pilot. I think it's one of the best things that this TAMC board can actually go ahead with. What I do want them to do is to consider going ahead and extending that, not just as sort of 4 eastern intersections, but to the whole set of intersections along the corridor. You will get immediate benefits from installing this from day 1. Day 1 gives you the flows immediately on all the intersections. You do not have any census devices on any of the junctions along Highway 68. All the calculations have been done on traffic census, as far as I can establish, from 2013. Since then, we've had COVID. We've got lots of different things happening. Smoke screens going up. It's all different, blah, blah, blah. We need factual details. So let's take advantage of trying to go from no real information, all simulated and predicted, to some factual information very, very quickly. You can have this information, as Doug says, very soon in the summer. We could have details all the way through for the whole area by the end of September is my guess, 6 months together following winter. Then you're going to have better information for your engineers to have informed decisions to make better designs, more optimum designs for the other intersections, let alone the first ones, but the other ones are going to be very important as well. There's lots of different things happening with development along the highway. You'll hear from someone else later on about that, I'm sure. The concerns on the western end with the volumes of housing that's potentially going to be built in the next 10 years. You're building this for the next 20 years. Let's seriously think about the volumes of traffic that are going to happen.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Next, we'll have Dwight Stubb.
Good morning, Board. I'm very encouraged to see that TAMC staff is recommending that Caltrans pursue the installation of the AI adaptive signal operations along Highway 68 corridor to demonstrate how effective it could be in addressing the peak commute congestion, improving event traffic, and providing increased safety by decreasing the collisions. This 21st century technology has already been installed in a number of similar settings in the US, producing 52% delay reductions, 20% emission reductions, and even a 23 to 34% collision reduction. I sent you the details of that in a letter on Monday about these installations, so you can compare it to the roundabout things that you have. I also supplied information I don't think you have on vehicle and bicycle fatalities in roundabouts and on collision increases that occur in them, including the one in Pebble Beach. Remember, roundabouts increase emergency response times and emissions and really do nothing for peak commute times and cost $200 million. Decreasing the number from 9 to 3 and using an untested hybrid design doesn't really change that. Adaptive decreases all of those items, costs $500,000 and can be installed immediately. Plus, it can be combined with the wildlife crossing separately that can be installed for only $5 to $7 million, which I confirmed by getting a public records request from Caltrans. I urge TAMC to support a thorough and objective examination of adaptive technology at all 9 intersections, just as you did in examining the performance of roundabouts in all 9. Adaptive reduces collisions where they most frequently occur. Caltrans data shows that fatalities have historically not occurred in these intersections and instead occur on the sections of road between. Adaptive should be installed and thoroughly tested before any other alternative is decided on and installed. It should have been considered as a viable alternative from the start, but it can now be given its deserved chance for the benefit of the local commuters and the taxpayers. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Joseph Heston.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Board. Offering the success of the traffic rotary near Chomp to make the case for all the proposed traffic circles on Highway 68 is a specious argument. That Holman Highway roundabout is essentially a terminus for a road that meets a thoroughfare, a freeway. The proposed traffic rotaries on 68 would impact the flow of a major thoroughfare. Back in 2017, when TAMC first laid out this overkill scheme, it was 11 roundabouts. Yes, 11, to be built in a 12-mile stretch between the airport and Salinas. In their press release at the time, TAMC called this, quote, the perfect plan, modeled on computers by civil engineers and traffic experts. We responded in a KSBW television editorial, quote, with 10 years of construction headaches, perhaps the perfect solution is not the best and most practical one. We went on to say, quote, it's not hard to imagine that all those traffic rotaries on a 12-mile stretch of Highway 68 might rival the circles of hell that Dante envisioned in his classic Inferno. Those concerns still stand today, 7 years later. Does 68 need help? Yes, of course. But enhanced intersections is a better idea, the best idea versus the construction and distraction of this TAMC pipe dream. Thank you.
Thank you. And now if we could go to Tom Rowley, hope I got that correct.
Good morning. My name is Tom Raleigh. I live in Fisherman's Flats in Monterey. Ed Smith is the rep here today. This presentation is really the point that he gave that graph, good news and bad news. It's good news that they've gotten to the point where they've recommended something specific. The bad news is that the Caltrans continues to underestimate the impacts of planned development in our area of Monterey. Highway 68, Monterey Salinas Highway, is both an urban street from Highway 1 to York Road entirely within the city of Monterey. It's not a rural road like you have on the east end where they provided a plan for construction. It makes sense. So I think the fact that they're ready to move on the east end, that's fine. But the good news, if it is good news, that they can work and really come up with some planning, whether it's adaptive signal planning or what it is. I first moved to my neighborhood in 1968. There were how many of you remember, no traffic signals on Salinas Highway? Our Citizens Traffic Committee recommended to Caltrans that they consider, and they looked at traffic counts and accidents. And they said, you need traffic signals. And the existing signals that are on Salinas Highway were a result of our Citizens Committee asking Caltrans, when are you going to do something about safety? They were not planning to do anything till we asked. So the good news is there is time to look at the other intersections that are on the west end in the city area, the urban area, and things planned. 4 major residential developments on Garden Road are currently in the works. Carpy Flats.
Thank you, Mr.
There
Rowley.
needs to be a bigger intersection, more construction considered at Olmsted Road. And it gives you, they now have the time to do this. So this is the good news. Thank you.
Okay, is there any more public member in the? Eric Peterson.
You can know that. My name is Eric Peterson. I'd just like to take a moment to address roundabouts from a cyclist point of view. My first experience with roundabouts was quite a while ago. I was in Koblenz, Germany, and I was on a multi-day cycling trip. I'm on a major highway. It's 5 o'clock rush hour. It's in the rain. Germany, it rains a lot. And I went through a whole series of roundabouts with absolutely no problem. And that convinced me that they were a good thing. From a cyclist point of view, you're not going to get 6-year-olds out there. You're going to get people who are used to riding bicycles and probably ride them an awful lot. Those riders, as I was a few years ago, can merge in with the traffic because doing 15 miles an hour on a bicycle, if you do it a lot, is common. Doing 25 miles an hour can happen too. But you merge in with the traffic and works like a charm. And it's a lot safer than what a lot of people try to get us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public here in the chambers? Yes, please.
Hello, good morning. My name is Monica Law. I'm with Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. The chamber is interested in improving congestion for commuters to the peninsula in many ways, inclusive of this project. We appreciate the community discussion about the best solution with consideration to costs, time to build, and listening to all the voices that will be impacted by this. Chamber is also supportive of the projects that this organization works with FORTAG and SERP, and we appreciate this robust discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members in the chamber? Seeing none, do we have anyone online?
There's a hand raised.
Okay, number ending in 2837, please unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes. Again, number 805-969-2837, please unmute yourself. You have a comment. You're not responding? All right. The hand that's raised on the screen that's trying to indicate they want to make public comment is not responding back. Seeing no others online, we'll now close that public comment. I'll bring this back to the board for comments, questions, discussion, action. You want to start?
I'll go after Bruce. Bruce raises you.
Oh, sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
Has staff worked with all the expressed concerns? And are there concerns that staff couldn't resolve, hybrid or other adjustments or discussions?
No project's perfect, so it's a trade-off. So I think the main constraint or issues we had was working with the fire chief. And we met with fire chief out in the field last week. And looking at the new hybrid design, he said it should address his issues. I think his concern was all 9 roundabouts and the slowing down of the vehicles all the way through the corridor was a concern. That's why, well, not why, but one of the benefits of the first phase, that's just the first 3, we can study that and evaluate it. But we've gone extensively with the fire chief. That was the biggest issue. And we met with the city of Carmel, Indiana, that just went full on roundabouts. And although nothing's a perfect apples to apples comparison, their fire chief, their emergency responders said they hadn't had issues with it. It gave him some comfort, but he still has some concern. Other than that, I think Mr. Stump has pointed out, you know, there's I think that we're driven in our industry to analyze just the peak hour. And if you start looking at the off peak in the middle of the night, you know, you start seeing that there are some things about a roundabout that slows down traffic. That's something that you know, again, the hybrid, it keeps the traffic moving, but by design, the roundabout slows down traffic. So I don't know if the resolve is the right issue, but I think we know it's there. We know the trade-offs, and we will be doing a corridor study to get a little bit deeper dive into that and have specific data.
Thank you. My other question is if there was more traffic information such as was suggested during public comment for the next 6 months or whatever, would that improve the design of this project?
No, I think when we look at hybrids, the design is that's the most we can do. That the hybrid design we've included is pushes the most traffic in amount of time. So that would be the ultimate solution. But I think that the question is, you know, what would adaptive do? That's going to improve the traffic flow, but it doesn't. If there's still a crunch point where there's not enough capacity, and we would learn that a little bit this summer.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
My question was, I think someone said the adaptive, it wasn't 500,000 for all the signals or just 500,000 for one signal?
Well, you have to go out to bid to get that, and I think there's, I don't know, Caltrans may be able to do that, but I've done adaptive, and what it really depends on which system you get. Some systems are cheap to put in, but then they have an annual maintenance contract. Some of them are you put it in and you blow and go, and then the equipment does its own thing. So I don't know if you have anything to add with it, but I think it determines on what system you get on what the cost is. The 500,000 I thought was the whole corridor, and four intersections would be less.
Just to be clear, that's an estimate that the gentleman from the public got from a vendor. The whole process has to go through Caltrans with procurement, so we don't know what the actual cost is yet.
Right, but it's significantly less than tens of millions of dollars for roundabouts. So I'm not against the roundabouts. I'm for more information in the cheaper and speeding up traffic while we're waiting to build the roundabouts. I think that's a good use of money too. And so that was just a question. And then I think we keep saying the roundabouts do slow down, but we're putting roundabouts in to increase the flow, right?
So it smooths the flow of traffic. It actually allows the volume of traffic to go through quicker than stopping for red lights. So there's
No,
benefits
he kept saying the roundabouts slow down traffic.
compared to a green light.
No. But that's what we're putting them in for, to keep the flow going at a faster pace, a consistent pace.
It's consistent, yeah.
Well, no, I get it. No, you still have to slow down at night by itself, but the whole object we're spending tens of millions of dollars is to keep the flow going when it's congested. So just asking information. Thank you.
One thing though is as you speed up, you have to have more space between the cars. So actually you get that called a jam density. When you get to a, not really slow, but 30, 35, 40 miles per hour, you get the cars packed in a little bit more. So actually pushing more traffic, you get it at a little bit lower speed, but point taken.
Great. Just want to make a comment. The my experience with roundabouts is a little bit different because I live in Mexico, and if you see in Mexico, downtown Mexico, there is a 4-line roundabout, which is the La Independencia, and there's you never seen traffic like this in the area. So, and the traffic keeps flowing. My experience with people around here is that we have a different traffic culture. We are used to let people go and stay and slow down and make 4-line stops and stuff like that. And I think that we have to, when it comes to roundabouts, we have to educate our public in how to do it. Because I've been in those roundabouts and people are scared of going in when traffic is moving because of the culture that we have, because we want to stop and let the other go. So we have to not only just throw that into the public, but also educate the public in how they have to maneuver when going into that. And the other thing is that, yeah, maybe the other program is less costly, but are we gonna update every so often? Or, with computer systems, you have to update continuously. How about in 2 years, our software is not gonna be up to date, and we have to invest another 570 years or in 500,000. So we have to consider that as well.
Those other board members?
Yes, sure. Just a question about the east side. Doug, you talked about that you're working as a separate initiative, not really part of this, but that's to solve the Toro Park access. So what happens if your other in the short term there? Since this is a phase 1 and a phase 2, and we're talking about the projects being adapted as we go, what happens with Toro to find a solution if you can't find it separate? Does it get added at the end of this phase? Well, what's our options for the east side for Toro? So I'm just wondering how that fits in to a phase 2 here.
That's a good question. It's really complex right there. You have a merge, then you have Torero, then you have San Venancio.
Right.
So originally I would have thought if we fixed San Venancio and the traffic, I don't want to go too deep, but it's not a queue that starts from San Venancio that goes back all continuously for 2 miles. So if we can get rid of the side traffic coming into Torero, that opens up that in the bottleneck, and that's going to push a lot of traffic to San Venancio. Conversely, if we fix San Venancio and we get the traffic flowing better, it may not queue back as much. But either way, we do have to go with Torero and it is parallel, but I don't think it's contingent. It's just gonna, I think Torero just is. We've got to do that regardless of what we do on 68. I don't think adaptive or the roundabout is gonna solve that, if that's your question. I think we still have to do Torero and I'm committed to get us a solution with that group.
Okay. And the other comment is that the first three that we believe is a priority. I'd like to know more about why you identified it as a priority. That's Laurel's grade, Raleigh Terra, and San Benancho. What was the material? What was the data? What told us that those first three should be the first three? I think the public would like to hear that.
Yeah. The main thing is Corral de Terra and San Benancio are the closest space. And that signal spacing really crushes the traffic coming in eastbound at nighttime. So it's mostly the queuing. And so we do some simulations. We could bring that back when we look at the solution, but the simulations show that, and I've been out there, you can do all the analysis you want, but I've been out there for days and days and hours observing. And I noticed that is the place where it goes in both directions. Laurel's grade back in the afternoon and San Benancio back in the morning. So that's really the crunch. And essentially that first phase is what's going to end up if our simulations show is we're going to take in the morning a huge queue and kind of break it up into smaller queues all the way down the road. So that's kind of the thing is you open up the log jam, you don't solve the problem, but you kind of start distributing it so that it's not just one long queue. So that's what our simulations show. And in the eastbound, it shows that we can get that traffic just flowing and not have a backup all the way. So it's basically simulations and that's driving this.
Great. And just a comment, if I could. Lighthouse Avenue, I think it has 8 signal lines. We started off with a pilot and then we fully adapted, put in adaptive signal line control on Lighthouse Avenue. And it has been a huge benefit. Of course, we don't allow left-hand turns, but not now because it's construction time. But that zone, that area of the 8 intersections, with all signalized with 40,000 cars a day. The adaptive signal line control has been a huge success. And those are signal lights that are much closer to each other, of course. One of the things that's the irony of the adaptive signal line control is this plan of the phased approach with the first 3 signal lines is really an adaptive plan. Because what you're talking about is we're going to adapt based on new data as it comes in after we have adaptive signal line controlling, see what areas are working. The 3 intersections we think is a good start. We don't know about the remaining 6, but that's down the road. So it really is adaptive to start working on it. And as we see results, then we come back to the drawing board. So I appreciate the extra effort.
Other board members, Andrew?
So just based off my colleagues from Monterey, is there a way that to include the entire corridor? I feel like we're at a good place where we could just add more than restarting the process in the future. That's one of my comments, or questions. And is there a downside to adding those adaptive signal lights in Toro and all? I mean, what's the downside to doing that initially?
I think at this point, Caltrans is here, they're hearing us. I think when it comes to cost, we can work. I think we have a commitment to work with Caltrans to get the adaptive.
Yeah, I just want to, I was waiting for a good opportunity to speak on this. My name is Dave Silverberger. I'm the Office Chief North for Project Management. I'm here today on behalf of Scott Needs, the District Director. Yeah, as a matter of fact, yesterday I spoke with our Chief for Traffic and Ops. And he said that Caltrans as a whole is looking into the whole adaptive AI approach, but it's new to Caltrans, but they're very open to it. But Caltrans obviously has to be very careful about how we proceed in changing corridors, and we want to make sure it's safe, it makes sense. And so that is a commitment that we've made to TAMC, that we're going to look into it and and change with the times, but we have to be careful about how we implement it. We need to make sure that it works. And that, and as a pilot, then we can actually test it. Okay, we're trying it. Did it work? Did it not work? What do we need to change? So I think that's our approach. That we're making a commitment to investigate it, but we also have to be cautious about how fast we go.
Other board members, any comments, questions? Scott?
Yeah, I just have a question regarding capacity and the current congestion that exists on 68, because we're not increasing the actual capacity of the corridor. And the usage is gonna remain the same, even get even more. Has anyone looked at where the new choke points, new points of congestion will be? I say that because you look at the Holman roundabout, it cleared out traffic, allowed it to flow better outside of the area of Chomp, but it created a new congestion point on Highway 1 going northbound. So has anybody taken a look at that? You put up a chart where it showed the current congestion. After this is done, where do you predict the future congestion will be?
That's a good question, and in general, between the intersections is never a problem. There's enough capacity between the intersections that you know, the intersections are always the constraining point. And our strategy is for both ends to the middle. So the corridor has a bunch of traffic, but when you're at Pasadena, you really don't ever see traffic from either side because it's kind of blocked going towards the middle. So our strategy is when we fix the east side, the next critical point is gonna, the west side. So Olmsted and by the airport, so we'll be fixing that side. So when we get the traffic flowing and open up the loggerheads, we're gonna be working towards the middle. And I think it'll be more evenly distributed. So I hope this answers your question, but what will happen in this ideally is that everybody's kind of feeling the pain equally. It'll be less pain overall, but it will be spread out all the way through. But it'd probably be at both ends, would probably be the critical intersections will still be the critical intersection.
Yeah, I mean, my concern, you're always gonna have a choke point, and I'm not sure if the intersection at 68 and 218 would be considered in all of this right now. But ultimately, if you're not doing anything with that, the traffic that's going westbound is gonna get choked up there. If traffic is flowing in all the spots that you're concerned with now, it's gonna get congestion there. And what I'm concerned about, what's happening in San Venancio where people are going through neighborhoods. I mean, that's right outside Delray Oaks. They're gonna find their way around it. Usage of South Boundary Road will increase. Other areas will increase for folks to get around that. So I'm concerned you're taking one problem that exists in San Venancio and pushing it to another congested area. And in this case, potentially outside of the city.
Yeah, I think goes back to another question is, and that's it. When we're saying we're not going to build our way out of congestion, what our simulation showed, and it's somewhat complex, but what happens is only so many people can use the corridor in an hour. So from 7 to 8 o'clock, there's a capacity, and you have to leave like 6 and 9 is congested. So we won't be solving it, but what our simulation showed is that the roundabout, a hybrid roundabout, would be able to serve more traffic. You know, in essence, the intersections are increased. So you'll still have the congestion, but it'll be for a shorter amount of time. And I think that's kind of the best case scenario, is that we're reducing the time that it becomes, well, maybe a better term is reliable. We get more reliable corridor where you can say, okay, for an hour it's bad, you got to avoid it. But your point's taken. You know, as it gets worse and worse, we're seeing that the congestion on 1 is affecting 68, and I think that compels us to do the most we can on the corridor as soon as we can.
So is anyone looking at the 68, 218 intersection with the adaptive signaling or anything? at this point in time?
That's part of our project. Yeah, that would be the double. If you remember, I could pull it up, and that's the one that has a 2-lane roundabout. That's the biggest roundabout. You'll throw in the kitchen sink at that one.
Right, but that's way down the road. We're just looking at the 3 roundabouts right now, correct?
Yes.
So with this current plan in mind, is anybody looking at the signaling at that intersection 68 and 218 right now?
Yeah, that would be the adaptive.
So that's part of the pilot then?
Yes. Well, we're trying to get the pilot. Pilot right now is, we're discussing with Caltrans 4 intersections. So it has to do with budget, but I think a good recommendation, if you want, we can guide Caltrans to say, hey, let's work towards all 9.
Absolutely. I would love to see that we include that in that program, because ultimately that traffic's got to go somewhere. It's going to choke down someplace. And I'm afraid it's going to happen right there.
Right. Marianne?
Yes, I have a question with the multi-lane hybrid. So if we implement that, are we talking about implementing that along all of Highway 68? And will that have any impacts on a larger footprint? Are we adding more lanes to sensitive habitat areas in the EIR?
It's conceptually, when you go, you actually build in. So which the center island on the roundabout, the single lane is a bigger center island, and a hybrid essentially gets that extra lane by reducing the center island. So the footprint is roughly the same. And it may have a little bit of an impact, but we're not talking a significant amount. Should be an insignificant impact to go to that. We would be doing that, and I think it's Dr. White was correct. It's like an adapting project. We do the first 3, we see what we get from that. Then we decide if it needs to be single lane or hybrid for the other ones, but 218 has to be 2 lanes.
Thank you.
All right, yes.
On behalf of Supervisor Adams, I'd like to just make a few comments and then ask a question. So thank you to TAMC and for Caltrans for trying to work towards the solution, because we do hear about congestion as an issue for the constituents. And so Supervisor Adams has been public before with her support on the Holman Highway roundabout. She uses that frequently and has noticed a huge improvement on the congestion and the safety in that intersection. And this phased approach seems like a really great start. And we definitely appreciate all the outreach that TAMC and Caltrans have done. We attended the few at Laguna Seca Raceway. And also thank you especially to Doug for working towards the Toro Park cut through traffic. He hosted a very well-attended community meeting and facilitated it perfectly. So thank you for that. And also for this project, including wildlife crossings, it really does seem like every possible solution has been considered, even though there is no perfect solution. So today we're being asked to make a recommendation to Caltrans, correct? And so who ultimately makes that decision on phased approach, full project, AI, and do we have a say in that, or is that where our recommendation comes into play?
Yep. We're a project sponsor, so we have influence, I'd say, but Caltrans makes the ultimate decision.
I mean, I believe we make the ultimate decision, but the way we've worked here for the last 20 years, it would be irresponsible on our part to just blindly move forward without full support from TAMC and the TAMC board. So we work in partnership and move forward in partnership.
And then just one second question. With improvements along Highway 68, is there consideration for protected bike lanes? Or is that not necessarily the same focus of the project, so it's not included?
It would have expanded the roadway, which just put into a tremendous cost, but since the project started, there is a possibility of upgrading shoulders to be bike facilities. And that's just something that kind of came out and allows us to do that. I think that could be done in certain segments, but to put in a bike lane, you'd have to take everything that's in the shoulder now, all the utilities and push them out. It would be almost as expensive and impactful as adding a lane in each direction.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Supervisor Leon?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I just want to make a brief comment. First of all, to thank staff for holding an additional meeting in East Salinas at the old firehouse. Really looking at the connection between the South of Salinas corridor, where my colleague Supervisor Lopez has been doing a lot of work, addressing a lot of those issues, a lot of fatalities along that whole stretch, working closely with Caltrans. But what I liked about that meeting is its connection to 68, because obviously our second largest workforce in Monterey County is hospitality, a workforce that isn't often discussed in this conversation about how to improve traffic flows so that our residents throughout the Salinas Valley and in the city of Salinas to get to their jobs in a more time efficient manner. They're often the thousands of people stuck in that gridlock in those peak hours as they're trying to get to work to serve and work in those hotels and restaurants and other tourism related businesses. So I just wanted to speak up for that because that was kind of the focus of this meeting in an evening hours in East Salinas, so that we could have more participation and elevate those voices at too. They don't have the time to come to these meetings or our other meetings that we have on this topic. But I think it was important to include those voices because they're the ones wanting to see more efficiency on how they get to work in the morning and on the way home as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we put that in perspective, that as we're talking about these improvements, we're talking about our second largest workforce as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Very well said. I'll add just one thing. And when they're late to work for half an hour, they don't get paid. So I don't ever remember seeing a number for lost wages for those workers. And that would be significant. Carl?
Yeah, Carl Sonor, CEO of Monterey Salinas Transit. Speaking more as an employer at this point, MSD employs about 300 people. I had 2 staff persons leave MSD within the past 2 months. And when asked, were you offered a better job? Am I not paying you enough benefits? No, they can't deal with the traffic anymore. Coming from Salinas to our offices in Monterey. So that is the level of impact that it's having, both on them personally, that they've had to decide to change jobs, but also as an employer now, I have to go find new employees because of traffic. So there's impacts all around, both on the, so regardless of the solution, something needs to be done.
And as we've heard from the presentation, from public input, and from our discussion, and thank you, Doug, for clarifying, this is about traffic management. That we're not going to solve the traffic issue. So I'm very appreciative of TAMC working with Caltrans and Caltrans, that partnership that you've always been there with, looking at creating that pilot program and in response to the public input. I think, that just shows how much you care about our region and how strong our partnership is. We are at a time for action. I think that we've found a nice balance, but I will leave it up to the board if they want to proceed with the recommended actions.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to authorize the executive director. I want to modify the 5 here. I think Todd would probably get this already, but the 5 are listed as select alternative 1 roundabouts. It's the preferred by the alternative best meets the project objectives. To identify and pursue funding for phase 1 that includes improvements to the intersections at San Venancio Road, Raleigh Sierra, and Larelas Grade constructs associated wildlife crossings. Ensure that roundabout designs for alternative 1, the preferred alternative, enable upgrades to hybrid roundabouts for the phase 1 intersections. Continue to work with emergency responders to address project impacts on emergency response times, and request that Caltrans pursue interim operational improvements along the corridor focused on signal coordination, including the pilot project to implement adaptive signaling operations with the hope of including all signalized intersections to be ultimately included. So with that, I make the motion.
And I'd like the clarification on that last portion that you added. Like you're talking about the signals that are left outside of the the alternative one. So,
No, it's specifically for the pilot. So the pilot is the request, and I think we acknowledge that.
Yes.
Pilot. But I want to, since Caltrans is here, I want to make sure he understands that we really, I believe, think that the pilot is absolute, but with the goal of looking at adaptive signal controlling at all the intersections. Personally, I have experience with it in the city of Monterey, and it works. We hope that Caltrans hears that as well. So we know we're putting a big ask. We start with pilot, hoping it goes to all signal controls.
okay, it's up to the board. I think that would mistake to add that at this point.
So could I just clarify?
Order.
Point of order. Was it seconded?
No, and I was just making a comment.
No, not yours, Chair. I'm just saying, I thought he made a motion and I thought I heard a second.
I haven't heard a second.
Oh,
Well,
Oh, I'm
I get some
sorry.
clarification on this last point though, yeah.
Could I rephrase your
Sure.
motion just to make it clear for me? The final action, the fifth recommendation is to request that Caltrans pursue interim operational improvements along the corridor focused on signal coordination, including a pilot project to implement adaptive signal operations. And I would modify it to, with the hope to include all 9 intersections in the corridor.
Yeah, that's exactly what my intent was.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for the words, Ben.
That's second.
All right, so we have a first with Ed, a second with Supervisor Vallejo. Questions or comments? Let's start with you, Eden. Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
No, I'd ask the maker of the motion if they would include instead of with the hopes of, if we could just make the recommendation to include the entire corridor. I don't know if you would accept that as a friendly amendment.
So as a motion maker, I would say we're not there yet. I think the pilot is first. So I think it would be a hard ask to expect that Caltrans will do anything until that pilot. So I think the pilot's the first step, and certainly hope, I mean, Caltrans is hearing us. I think that the eventual expansion of the adaptive signal control will be the ultimate goal, but I think we should start with pilot.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor, but just the thought is that I don't really like the hope portion of it. You know, I feel if we have the opportunity to say, you know, we should just, you know, our recommendation is to move forward with the entire area. You know, as my colleague said, what other areas will be affected because of this? And it's just a good opportunity. We're not directing them to do it, but just recommending that we move forward as best as they can, because they're gonna have to make judgment about budget and things like that. You know, as Supervisor Alejo said, you know, the biggest workforce is from Salinas, and anything we could do to alleviate that or to support that, I think would be beneficial.
Caltrans wants to make a remark, but let me go to Ian first.
Yeah, that was my concern. I'm not supportive of the hope. Hopefully we can change that. I just don't. It's kind of hard to make an amendment that you said, or a motion that hopes to do something, right? You want to do something. And I think what we have to remember is the pilot, that's fine. But by the time they get to the second phase, the third phase, or down, down to the west end, that's years from now. And so, yeah, the pilot had these signals signalized. I mean, that's a benefit to those people we just talked about driving every day for the next 5 or 6 years. You know, whenever this thing gets started, it's going to be years after before construction. It's going to be years of construction for the first 2 or 3 roundabouts. So when we're talking about signalizing during the pilot for those signals, we're talking about there'll be staying and maintenance, right? I don't know, 10, 12 years, right? And so I think at a certain point it becomes a reasonable cost while we're waiting for the so-called fix.
Well, and I will say, that's why I questioned the additional language. A pilot is a pilot. We don't know what that's going to entail, what that's going to look like. Caltrans is going to be the ones that we're recommending to develop that. They've heard our conversations, and I would be hesitant to instruct them to, or make a recommendation that do the pilot with everything first without those conversations happening at their level What if it's not feasible? What if that doesn't work? What if they're unable to get the equipment? So, I mean, I was happy with 5 as written. But I do want to give Caltrans an opportunity to respond and Todd, so.
So from my perspective, you could change the word hope to recommend, because in the end, you're recommending it. If Caltrans can't do it, why then we'll say, you know what, we can't do it at this time. But then the recommend carries the weight of, hey, this is where we'd like to go. So you're recommending it without then mandating it. And then we hear that, and then we can move forward with that.
Before we move forward, you had made a request for an amendment, so I'm gonna kind of restate that and see if the maker of the motion would include changing the words with hope to recommend. So it'd be operations to recommend to include all 9.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but I do want to hear from the executive director.
Yeah, we're going to. But if
Yes,
you're fine with that with the second piece, all right.
I would
So
be
we have
fine.
that, are everyone cool with that as the amended motion? With those words?
I'm fine with that, as long as, excuse me, as long as those 9 intersections that we're talking about include 68 to 18. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
So now Todd?
Thank you. I think that the amended language is an improvement to the motion. And the point is, why we need some flexibility is this hasn't been engineered or evaluated yet, so the Caltrans needs to do that work before they know whether all 9 would benefit or a subset of those are appropriate. So I think with that change, it's an improvement.
Do you have a final comment?
Yeah, yes, I'm okay with that, but I was just gonna, once they do the pilot, it will be easier for them to project a change or to include the whole thing. So it will be just for them to follow up with a recommendation in how to implement the change in the whole code.
All right, any other final comments, Bruce?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions earlier. Now I have a comment. I think that the motion and the recommendation is the logical thing to do because we all know it only gets more expensive. So these roundabouts will cost a lot more in the near future. The second thing I want to say is that whatever we do to improve it maximally using AI and roundabout combo, it's still going to get worse after 20 years of planned development. So people are still going to look back and say, oh, this project didn't work because now we have worse traffic than we did before the roundabouts, before the AI. I just wanted to be clear that my assumption hearing from staff over the months is that it's going to get better with whatever we do. And then it's going to get worse than it is now after we do what we're going to do. But if we don't do what we're going to do, it would be even worse in the future than if we didn't do anything.
Well, Bruce, that's why we have public transit at the table. They're going to solve this ultimately.
And that's why we insert the word hope once in a while.
I hope I'm wrong.
MST no longer serves the Highway 68 corridor because of the traffic conditions, and we cannot run a schedule reliably through that schedule. So whatever, again, the solution is, that ultimately, we would love to be able to return service to Toro Park and Creekside and Sarah Village. At this point, we just can't do it. So again, thank you for mentioning transit.
All right,
I hope we're successful.
We have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
District 1, Supervisor Alejo.
Aye.
District 2, alternate Gray.
Yes.
District 3, alternate Barba.
Yes.
District 4, alternate Mora.
Yes.
District 5, alternate Courtney.
Aye.
City of Panama by the Sea.
Yes.
City of Dario.
Yes.
City of Gonzalez.
Yes.
City of Greenfield.
Yes.
City of King City.
Aye.
City of Marina.
Yes.
City of Monterey.
I hope so, yeah.
There's always hope.
Aye.
City of San City.
Aye.
City of Seaside.
Aye.
City of Salt Lake.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And I'll move on to item 5, provide direction on transportation agency membership and community organizations that endorse candidates and issues. Todd?
Thank you. Director Sandoval requested that this item be put on the agenda, and the issue was concerns about the transportation agency's membership in community organizations that make endorsements to candidates, take positions on issues. We have been member of the Monterey Peninsula and the Salinas Chambers for quite a while. We do that to engage with the business community and get feedback from them on our projects and be able to push out information about our projects. And unfortunately, often to correct misinformation that's being discussed about our projects in some of their venues. So we find value in those situations. The issue is about when they endorse candidates and take a position on issues. And our practice in all this time has been to step back in those situations, not be part of the discussion, and obviously not take a position on a candidate or an issue. I bringing it into the agenda, wanted to get direction from the board about our continuing to be members of community organizations.
And then, Andrew, this is an item you requested. I wanted to give you the opportunity first to speak on it.
Sure, well, I appreciate the agenda item coming forward. The agenda item I requested is a little bit different than this. I wanted to approach it from a policy perspective, not necessarily specific agencies. We did the same thing with the Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority. We passed a policy identifying the scope of how we make decisions. I didn't see that TAMC had any policy or procedure about how we choose what organizations we're a member of. And so some of my concerns, I think only King City, Greenfield, and Soledad do not receive political endorsements. Every other city on the TAMC board receives political endorsements, and they may come in the form of email blasts, publications, newsletters. And so that was my concern, is that, I don't think it's appropriate for us to do that now. I did reach out to the chamber to ask the question in March. I didn't get a response, but I know they're here. And I said, in preparation for our question, can you please advise me what, if any, changes the Chamber of Commerce related to participation, engagement, dissemination of information of TAMC would be affected by not having that membership. I mean, part of the scope of their mission revolves around government decision and transportation. And so I wanted to get a response from them. But those were my main concerns, is that we don't have a policy, and it would be good to have a policy. Does that mean that other agencies who also disseminate information would be eligible to be members of our, would we be members of those organizations as well, as long as they do similar things? So I think it would be beneficial if we had a policy. That's right.
Let me, any board members have any questions or comments on this? So I'll start. I understand what you're saying, and I understand the point of view. It was hard for me to find out really, like, how is that related to TAMC, because we just reported 2 organizations, and the board report showed they're not part of the endorsement policies or processes through those organizations, which I think is appropriate. You wouldn't want a government agency like that to be part of any endorsement process. And I can understand wanting to put a policy in place, but I just don't see how it works on this, because we only have the two groups. I mean, myself, I would assume, and maybe this is like the direction we provide, is one is, if you're going to join another organization, come let us know first. We're thinking of joining this organization, so the board can know. And then definitely, whatever it is, you continue the practice of not participating in any endorsements or political actions, whatever that organization is. I mean, it's Seems like every organization these days has a political arm of it doing something else. It's different from the main core mission. But unless we have comments from board members, yes.
I have a comment. Thank you. Just a full disclosure, I am the alternate for the city of Carmel, as I think everybody knows. And in the interest of disclosure, know that my position, my personal position differs from that of my mayor. We did have a brief conversation about this, so I will offer my position, my thoughts, and they do not represent Mayor Potter. I find it a little bit unseemly, for government organizations to be paying members of pretty much most organizations. If it's, we have a representative from the chamber here. And my hope is that when, to use the examples of the two organizations here, the Monterey Chamber of Commerce and the Salinas Chamber of Commerce, my hope is that on issues that interact or intersect with transportation, that we would be invited, that this organization would, by its mere existence, be invited. When things happen in my city, and I'm sure when things happen in your cities, and the Chamber of Commerce, is doing something in a city, my guess is that most of us are already invited to those meetings. And so I don't understand why, again, this reflects me, not my mayor. I don't understand why there is a cost involved at all to being a part of that discussion. We are the government, and that, that's good and that's bad and is all, but someone has to do it. And we, as we sit around this table, this organization, are responsible for transportation policy, and that affects a lot of people. And so we, this organization should be invited to those meetings. And if we are not invited to those meetings, then that is a problem within this organization. That is a problem either within this organization or within the other organization that is not doing the inviting. And we all, as council members or mayors or representatives, we have the power to individually try to fix that. And then through our director, Mr. Muck, also try to fix that. So I don't think in general, we should be paying for membership in most organizations at all, because we already should have that seat at the table. And when we add the impact of the fact that these organizations endorse people, some of whom here were endorsed and some of whom, clearly not. It seems unseemly. And I know that, Mayor Potter would disagree with me on this, but I personally believe that there needs to be a line somewhere. And I do not know, I don't know how to draw that line, other than to draw that line about this organization at the very beginning, which is to say simply no. So again, that would be my position on this, but that differs from my mayor's position. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments?
There's one down there and then I'll go.
Yes.
I'm Supervisor Church's alternate, and yeah, kind of going off of what you just said, Supervisor Church agrees that government agencies should not be paying members of these organizations. Just wanted to put that.
Well, I Jeff and Supervisor Church, I agree on this sense where I can understand your position on that. And that would be something the chambers would have to look at how they want to adjust those. I'm sure a lot of these things are long time practices. But for me, the line in the sand, that clear line, is not participation in endorsement or political process within that organization. And I would be very, very concerned if we're starting to pick and choose organizations based on the will of a policy or the board who may or may not agree with that agency's political portion of their work. So I don't know about you. I would prefer that we kept this as direction to, if there's going to be participation in a new organization, bring that for the board for approval. And then you maintain and continue your practice of staying out of the political and endorsement process that that organization has. That's a good mess.
Yes. Well, the city of Monterey is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, I think to Mr. Barron's point, I think the chamber and all the other community groups, everybody has a seat at the table because they're not going to deny your voice. They're not going to certainly deny you showing up to make sure you advocate for a position or not. I think the central point is, and the executive director said that this agency does not participate in political recommendations. Now, the Chamber of Commerce, through their governmental affairs, does that for selected cities. And they will collaborate with their members, and their members make a recommendation. That doesn't mean that that affects TAMC. I don't see the connection of how that impacts TAMC at all. Because the members of TAMC are elected by the communities. And TAMC doesn't participate in that. The community does that. That's the ultimate democracy. The community members elect the members that serve on the board. So I don't know how more pure you can get. And if TAMC does not participate in a political realm with the chamber, what's wrong with being a community member with the chamber that supports their effort for them to participate in making sure that we hear from the business community and the Chamber of Commerce for Monterey? And I think to do anything otherwise would send a terrible signal to the members of the community that we also serve that are members of the Chamber of Commerce. It just sends a terrible signal to say, you know, we don't want to be a member of your Chamber of Commerce when there's been no single point that we can direct ourselves to when there's been any kind of violation of any political unethical activity. There hasn't been any. So I think we should stay and leave it as it is. And we have the underlying statement of our executive director that we don't participate in the process of whatever the Chamber of Commerce decides to do in their endorsements. That's not our thing.
Supervisor Lejo?
Yeah. You know, I'm kind of asking myself why we have this conversation here at TAMC, and I think it's taking us putting time when we should be focusing on other issues that are the central core mission of TAMC. Yeah, obviously, I know where this is coming from. Andrew, this is one of those issues you brought up in your city council. I see it as divisive politics. I've been in politics, in elected office for 16 years, and I haven't always been endorsed by a chamber, but I understand that chambers play an important role in our communities. They're an important voice for small businesses. And in politics, people often tout small businesses being the greatest job generators, which they are. But they're also an important, chambers serve an important purpose that is increasingly becoming more difficult. The City of Gonzales Chamber is gone. A lot of chambers are gone because they struggle financially to keep, there's a cost that comes to it, and it takes resources, and many are no longer here. But I think a strong, vibrant community is when they do have an active business voice in their communities. And just because in the past a chamber did not support me doesn't have me seeking retribution or only because they disagreed with my point of view. I recognize the value that they placed in our community, and I hope that every city in Monterey County had an active chamber, but that's just unfortunately not the case. And so I just want to recognize that a lot of issues that we talk about, stakeholder participation and input, we try to seek consensus as much as we can on these controversial topics, including this last one we just had. But as an elected official, at some point I got to recognize chambers are an important voice for small businesses. We mentioned too, there's SUBA, the Monterey Business Council. These are all associations that are important. On the ag side, we have the Farm Bureau, the Grower Shippers, the Vendors and Growers Association. All of them played important roles. Certainly during some of the times of crisis, like the pandemic, it was important to have those good working relationships with them to work and when it got closed down our businesses, a lot of those chambers provided they worked closely with county government to address a lot of the issues where we needed greater collaboration more than ever during that time of crisis. So from my personal experience, having good working relationships beyond just an endorsement that comes once every couple of years these days, it's making an intentional effort to have good working relationships. Part of that is with our business community, and I don't think just because they disagree with you on an endorsement that somehow we should say we should not no longer participate with that organization. That's all.
Andrew?
Yeah, for me, it's not about a disagreement about an endorsement. I think it's an issue of government funding organizations that make political endorsements. One of my initial questions was, are we able to be members of other organizations that make political endorsements? Maybe the Green Party or other agents or organizations like that. I don't see the harm in having a policy about what type of agencies. I wish in the agenda packet, one of the items I submitted was a sample policy that was approved unanimously, including by the representatives from the Board of Supervisors and all the cities in South County. So to show the intent.
Wait, not all the cities in South County. I don't know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, you have a seat at the Salinas Valley Solid Waste. It's
Oh, you're talking about a specific agency.
yes, the Salinas Valley Solid Waste
All right,
has
just to be clear, I thought you were referencing our city. Our city is not and has not. Our representative would have been one as a member of that board speaking and working on behalf of that board. So just to be very clear, when you say all South County cities.
Yeah, well, the representatives from all South County cities approved this policy unanimously, and that was my hope because that would have provided some context to the intent behind it. But I just don't understand why we shouldn't have them. That would be my request for direction is that we at least have a conversation, whether that be at our executive committee or however the executive director to establish a policy. That would be
Just a comment is that I believe, well, the way that I saw it is that if you are paying to be a member of that organization and that organization makes a recommendation or endorse somebody, that by itself, we are participating in endorsement. I don't see any problem with being a member in that in Chamber of Commerce. I think it is a wonderful connection. But I also see the point in paying for that membership. Because if we are paying and not, how much is that paid? $70? I don't think it's gonna hurt the organization if we don't pay that $70. But it shows transparency. It shows that we are not supporting the endorsement unless we provide something that saying that we abstain from any endorsement that the organization does.
Okay. Everyone has made good points, Bruce. Then I'll go to public. Let's assume Bruce did the end.
I'm glad to have these kinds of discussions now and then, although it does derail us with transportation. But if we're gonna have a policy, we have to discuss what it's gonna be. If we're gonna give one organization money, we give all chambers money. Do we expect all government agencies to give all chambers money? And I think that some chambers can turn into some political club type activities. And if they get a check for $1,000 from TAMC, and they say, oh, good, now we can put $1,000 into supporting this candidate, and it'd be all above board. And our money would be going towards supporting a candidate. And of course, none of us would want that. So I think we have to be very careful what our policy is and where we give our money. But I do appreciate this conversation.
Ian?
I'm not sure we need a policy, but it's been brought up, right? So, okay, but I thought we have a policy where the executive director does not engage in these political committees, right? And maybe he just needs to delineate that. But it's hard for me to support a policy that says the TAMC cannot be part of the Chamber of Commerce, knowing that I'm probably in a city that supports the Chamber of Commerce. So then what do? I go back to my city and say, we can't be in Chamber of Commerce? And I'm with the supervisor when he said, I'm sure it was 1 or 2 times where the business community and Chamber of Commerce did not endorse me. But I didn't go back to my city hall and say, hey, let's not partner with them. Let's not work with them. So it has to be separation there. And so when we're talking about should TAMC be in any of these organizations, okay, well, then there shouldn't be in none. It's not which ones, right? That's for the executive director to figure out which ones he wants to be in to move forward. And I think as we're talking about small business or what the chambers do throughout our different communities, it's important that if the executive director of TAMC feels that they need to be in these organizations to have a place at the table, not just show up one day and say, I'm the executive director, can I be on your agenda? Can I give a presentation? Can I make comments? We all know it's important to be at those tables, particularly when we're talking about every so often, asking the residents, asking the voters, asking the taxpayers for more money. And that starts with the groundswell and definitely making sure our business community understands what we want to do with the money. But I agree where we should not be into organizations and serving on their political governmental committees, picking candidates. I understand that completely.
So, Mary Ann, anyone else before I go to the public? All right, Mary Ann.
My city is a member of the chamber, and we don't look at it as who they're gonna endorse. You know, whoever's running, if you're running for election, that's up to you, up to the person who's gonna be out there campaigning. What our city looks to the chamber for is the value and the collaboration that they give within the community and support. So, you know, just when it comes in, are we looking at it as here it says that to organizations that endorse candidates and issues. So I know that we could put, if we want to, we could put a city council member on their government policy committee or whatever, but that there comes back to the council. That's not, you know, that there's a discussion, and it's what's best for the community. So I don't look at it as it's a tool for just endorsing specific candidates.
All right, let's go open this for public. We have Monica and Karen first. Monica?
Good morning, and thank you for the discussion. My name is Lala. I'm the president and CEO of Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate the question. Happy to clarify. I can't speak for how other chambers are funded. They're all funded differently. And that's important to understand. We do not receive any municipal funds. We operate by dues in our events and our programs. We have line items that separate where our funding goes. Please know our members are not a monolith. Many of them don't support participating endorsements, but they know that's part of our role. It's not all, it's a small part of our role. Just to be informed, provide a format and a venue for people to come, then we make our endorsement. But that does not speak for all our members. So our funding for our small government affairs budget is separate and visible in our budget. Other chambers receive municipal funds, we pay market rate. So this is important to know as a nonprofit and community service. We enjoy our role as a community builder. Our committees with our government affairs, not all governments join, different departments join because they see value, particularly for workforce development, meeting key members. And when we bring people together for economic development, different committees, different gatherings, leadership forums, educational facilities and options, it's to bring new members who might be new government members, new council members. They get to meet a number of the leaders. New leaders in community organizations get an interface with members and leaders in the business community. So the endorsements are important, but they're not all. I really enjoy our community outreach with the community and our fellow chambers, but they all function differently. And we can very clearly say where policy and endorsements are separate.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Karen, from Salinas Chamber.
Morning, everybody. I'm Karen Moss, CEO and President of the Salinas Valley Chamber. We understand your concerns, and to that end, we have begun to convert all public entity members to the government entity membership status so that no funds will be applied to campaigns or endorsements. We've begun to do that right away. But something I would like to mention, and thank you everyone for your understanding our role in the community. We are a multifaceted marketing resource, and we're a partner to our members in assisting and notifying the public of meetings and initiatives. I was sequestered in the Russian River for 2 years during the pandemic and was able to work very closely with Sonoma County Tourism and the county. And we, disseminated information to the public, and we served a very important role. So as someone pointed out, our role in the community is multifaceted. So I encourage you, even as recently as the last meeting that I was here, Teresa said, "Hey, Karen, here's a flyer. Can you get this out to the public?" And within 1 hour, that flyer in English and Spanish was disseminated to our extensive database. So please think of us in a bigger way as a marketing and public relations, community relations agency. And our meetings are transparent, and we welcome you to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Mr. Curcio from Monterey County Hospitality Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Gary Curcio, and I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Monterey County Hospitality Association. First, I want to say that TAMC is not currently a member of MCHA. They were for many, many years. It's still, TAMC is not a member, but Todd is welcome at any of our government affairs meetings to speak anytime that he would like to. And many times we invite him when we have a specific topic that we need to talk about. The only thing I would say is, again, someone said, well, do we really need a policy? I don't know if you do or not, but what I would say is this. If you do develop a policy, it should be consistent. And if the executive director feels that there's a benefit in belonging to these associations, by all means, you should belong to them. And as you all know, hospitality is our second largest employer in the county. 35,000 folks. We have 250 members in MCHA. But again, and I think Todd already knows this, whether they're members of MCHA or not, they're always welcome to show up at our government affairs and speak at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other members in chambers? Public comment? Is there any members or any public members online? I still see that same number with the hands up. Let's give an opportunity. Oh, no, that's a different one, right? Yeah. So 831-582-1705. Go ahead and unmute and speak if you'd like to speak on this topic.
Yes. Yes, hello, everyone. Yes, hello, everyone. Just to let you know that we couldn't get through this morning to have our public comments. And I feel that this board does not want to hear from the public, and it does not even allow us to call someone and say, hey, we can't get through. That would be a proof to me that there's someone on TAMC board that really does care what the public has to say, and they would make sure that we could contact someone. So
let me clarify you while you're continuing speaking. We did provide an opportunity during that agenda item. This is agenda item 5 regarding direction of membership of community organizations to endorse candidates. Is this what you wanted to speak on? Yeah, unmute them. Is this the item that you wanted to speak on?
Hello.
Is
Yes,
this the
I'd
item?
just like, I'd
No, no,
just like
I
to,
gotta, excuse me,
but
ma'am,
you
before you
didn't-
continue, I need to ask,
Yeah.
what item are you asking to speak on?
I would like to say that I do not feel that Chamber of Commerce should have input into TAMC as a part of that. Thank you.
All right, any other public members on item number 5 of the agenda? Let's try that one again. Number ending in 2837. Yes, sir.
Hello,
You
can
hear
you
this?
hear me?
Number 5.
Can you hear me? Hi,
Yes.
can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
I'm so glad I finally got through. I've been waiting about a month to speak to you on general comment, and the whole thing, there was serious problems. Half the time we couldn't hear anything. And then when I tried getting through on public comment, I kept pressing *6, but it wouldn't let me get through.
So
And
let me
I'm
ask
very
you,
sorry.
what item is this for?
Well, I wanted to do general comment, but I wasn't allowed to. But on this item, I will say I don't think that TAMC should become a member, and they can go to the meetings anyway, and it doesn't look good to the public, and the public's not, does not have a great amount of confidence in the government. I mean, so the government officials tend to be very self-congratulatory, but the public has a very different perception. So I would say absolutely not. Stay out of it. And I'm so sorry I wasn't allowed to do my comments. I mean, I waited a long time. It's very distressing when when you don't allow people to comment, So we tried really hard, but your system was malfunctioning, and I hope you can fix it. I guess that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public online who want to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this back to the board.
Well, like I said, my request is that we provide direction to staff to establish a policy on what type of organizations and criteria. As we heard from the hospitality agency, we're not a member of their organization, or, there should be some guidelines for our agency to do that. That would be my request or my direction.
Your direction, my direction would be, staff is already doing it, is that if they're going to join another agency or another group, come let us know. And to maintain this continued practice of not participating in any political or endorsement process. I mean, it's a different, Andrew, I can say it, I don't see what the issue is here, quite honestly. They're not doing anything wrong. Nothing is going on that's wrong.
Well, I see it differently, but.
I see you want policy, but we're asking. When an elected says policy, what we're saying is we want to spend money. Because that will be spending money. It will make staff have to go create a policy and have to go through attorneys, and you can say that's fine. But this is a transportation agency. There's not an issue involved. And that's why I've been struggling with this item, because I just don't get it. I don't understand what the problem is. I'll get to you and I'll get to you. So, and if we need to make that as a motion, we can, but I think the direction's very clear. Continue not participating in these organizations' endorsement or political processes. And the additional thing was, if you're going to join another one, bring it to the board first. So we have that discussion. And then we're fully aware, because we only belong to 2 groups, right?
2 groups that may take positions on candidates.
Okay. Anyone on the side? I know.
No, mine was more clarifying, which is we are members, but I thought someone just said we were not.
We're members of both Monterey Peninsula and Salinas Valley Chamber. We're no longer, and have not been for a while, members of Monterey County Hospitality Association.
And I think that the issue is the paying membership, not being a member, not being part of it. I think that the issue is whether we should be paying for membership or not.
Okay, and I could understand that, but they did clarify that those dollars are segregated out and where they go. Andrew?
Well, with that, Chair, I appreciate your approach of, and I'd like to make a motion that we do move forward with a policy on what type of memberships we can be a part of.
I'll second.
All right, then I'll make a substitute motion that we would direct staff to bring forth to the board if they're going to join another organization and continue the practice of not being involved in political and endorsement processes of any organization.
I'll second that. And if I could speak to that, I would just say that this is a solution in search of a problem. And I take offense that we have to make one member's personal vendetta against chambers, now policy of TAMC. I'd like to get back to the issues that are the core values and the core focus of this agency.
So we have a substitute motion and a second.
Can I have a comment?
And we'll take comments right now.
Something the mayor said, that should be consistent. So we just heard that we are paying members, I assume, of 2 chambers. How many chambers are there? How many other good organizations are there? Where's the consistency? Where is the fairness? The smaller communities need help more, but we're giving to the largest. Why? Have we had a discussion about it? Does it fit some criteria we all agree on? And so that's why I think when you have a policy that's addresses the broad, you more likely have a fair policy rather than just picking and choosing for whatever, based on whatever criteria of the moment is used to make the choice.
Okay. Fair enough.
Chairman's question.
Yes. You first.
Apologies to Todd to put you on the spot, but is there a staff recommendation or I know this is the elected body to make policy decisions and I can see both sides. I think I would love to hear what TAMC thinks if you feel comfortable because it seems like we could be solving a problem that doesn't exist, or we could be creating a policy that would help provide guidelines. I think both could be happening with this.
Okay. We when I took over as the executive director, I reviewed the agencies that we are paid members of. And I did step back from some of them that I felt like they weren't quite meeting our needs or providing our benefit. And the hospitality association was not that they don't have a value, because I do believe in the big tent perspective that the more that you involve different parts of the community, the more you engage, the better you get interactions, the better you understand transportation issues and convey them. But I did reassess the various agencies. Another one that I stopped their membership was the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, MBAP, because they used to have a strong transportation component and they reduced that and shifted to housing. So whereas before our partnership with them on transportation issues was strong and made sense, it changed. So I changed our memberships based on that. There are other organizations that have never asked us to be members, and we haven't traditionally been members, and we participate with them on a kind of ad hoc basis. I have noticed with Monterey Bay Hospitality, when we stepped back from members, all of a sudden I was no longer invited on every month when they had their government affairs committee. It was just on an invitation basis, and I think that's what you could probably see when you're not a member versus being invited to participate when they have a question about transportation. Every organization has a cost to operate, and you know, operating TAMC has expenses, and I appreciate that the chambers have expenses to operate. So we have so the membership kind of pays our fair share in that sense of making sure that they're maintained. There are chambers around the county, Pacific Grove Chamber, we were a member at the same time, and I stepped back from that because it didn't make sense to be a member of every chamber in the county. The two largest one have businesses that kind of spread throughout the peninsula and out the Salinas Valley. So I did that assessment and decided that a core group were more appropriate for our agency's needs. A policy would be clear, but I think that the practice has been appropriate up to this date. So the effort to put a policy together takes time and energy, but that's the will of the board. Let me go that way.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Scott?
Okay, I guess one of the things I'm struggling with is, and Todd, you help with this, to outline what the process is right now. I mean, what are we using as direction and guidance moving forward with this? And that's helpful, but I think, I don't know, Mike, if that's part of your motion that, hey, we would take what we have now and look at that and potentially provide further guidance on it.
No, I think I was very, very clear. If they're going to join another agency, just let the board know. These are executive director decisions on the value for the agency. It means the relationship we have with the board and the executive director to say, look, I'm going to join organization XYZ. The direction, I think the absolute important portion of it is continue your practice of not participating in political or endorsement components of whatever that group is.
Right, I'll just take it down to the city level. I mean, what we do in Delray Oaks is we look at the organizations that are there and the council votes on, you know, what money do we want to give to certain organizations.
Yeah. Well, I understand that. We do have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Well, let me.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry I missed you again.
No, I was not going to say anything, but I'm going back to my original point is if I don't know how long it would take, Todd. I don't think it would take the executive director more than an hour to delineate the policy that he's doing now.
Right.
Right? The policy is we in these two organizations. I don't participate in the governmental election political process. If we're going to expand it, tell the board. That's the policy, right? I'm just not supportive of us picking and choosing which one he picks and chooses. But to write up what we're doing now shouldn't be that difficult.
Right. Okay, so we have a first and second. Roll call, please.
This is on the substitute.
This is on the substitute.
Through the chair, I would like to submit a substitute motion to the substitute.
There is no substitute motion.
Yeah, there is. You can do it up to 3.
No.
According to Robert Rules of Order, you can do 3. That's
Three.
Yeah, please don't laugh because we are in a serious.
You don't know Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, I have it open right now.
It's 3 in there.
Get your copy.
It's 3. I got my copy.
Is it true?
It would take me a minute to discern that, but you're saying that's 3. The question is it 3? Supervisor Leo, you said it was 3, is your understanding as well?
What?
Substitute.
There's only original motion and the substitute motions. And if the substitute motion gets voted on first, and if it fails, then you go back to the original motion. There isn't a substitute to the substitute motion.
Okay, if I could have 5 minutes, I can look into it. Did you want to take a short recess?
Yeah, and if everyone wants to take a quick break, grab some coffee.
You're fine. It's fine.
And then the substitute.
So we have already spent about 45 minutes on this discussion.
It's over. It's lost. It's lost.
Okay.
I pulled it up now, so I'll make you.
All right, everybody. Please take your seats. So go ahead and explain
there is a process by which you can have a secondary substitution. So you have your primary substitution, which was what has been moved and seconded. You were trying to propose a secondary substitution. I think the question that we need to answer, though, before we go down that road is it the first motion that was substituted, or are you offering a third idea?
I just wanna follow up with the Oglesby recommendation that if the director will write the procedure in formal writing so that we understand that those steps are.
But for my edification, how does that differ from the original motion that was made?
Well, because he wants to create a policy, we just want for him to write the procedure that he's doing.
The,
Through the chair. I think the original motion was a policy to talk about what we should be in, what we should not be in. The second one, the substitute was, don't have one at all, I believe. Sure,
Yeah.
right, roughly.
right.
I'm going to second this one, right, is to delineate, to document what he's doing and what the chair said he wants done, which is tell us if they decide to make, join another group in the future. That, right now, that's just a chair suggestion. That doesn't tell the executive director that he has to do anything, but this policy and this motion will do that.
You want to add that as an amendment to mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so close.
There.
All right, I would accept that as amendment.
Can you restate what your motion is?
Yeah, seconder, please.
Yes, after you restate.
Yeah, it would be to provide in writing to the board what you are currently doing in regards to activities with other agencies,
And membership.
memberships, to notify us if and when you join another organization and continue your practice of not participating in political or endorsement processes.
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
So we do have a first and second.
Does the
Roll
substitute
call.
motion, sorry,
I'm calling roll call now. We've had a long
but does
discussion.
the substitute motion require the creation of a policy?
No.
No.
Okay.
All right, roll call, please.
What happened?
We got, I accepted your amendment.
And it requires the policy.
No, he was just asking clarification if it did. It doesn't, with the written, and the seconder took that, so
So no policy, just for clarification.
in writing. To provide it in writing to the board. Call the roll, please.
District 1,
Aye.
District 2,
No.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
No.
District 5,
Abstain.
City of Carmel by the Sea,
No,
City of Del Rey Oaks,
Yes.
City of Gonzales,
Yes.
City of Greenfield, City of King City,
Aye.
City of Marina,
No.
City of Monterey,
Yes.
City of Salinas,
No.
City of Sand City,
Yes.
City of Seaside,
Aye.
City of Soledad.
No.
What does it say? Oh, sorry. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no's.
And so we have the weighted system. Do you have?
How many yes?
That's big.
I have some notes, I mean, yes.
6 no's, 1 abstain. Yes.
All right, passes unanimously.
I call for a weighted vote. Chair, I call for a weighted vote.
You gotta call that one. I closed your item.
Any member can call for a weighted vote.
At what point?
The item was closed, the vote was taken, the item was closed.
It's supposed to be called before the vote.
Chair, I did request a weighted vote to you. I did, to specify my intent to the attorney. Like I said, I'm calling for a weighted vote.
I'm sorry, but it is too late. You have to call it before the vote. And I know you mentioned it to me, but you have to request that, and you didn't, and I'm not playing games here, but we're done.
I understand. Just for clarification, is there a policy or procedure that outlines your decision, Chair? Because I'd like to appeal that decision.
Can we move on, please?
I will ask the executive director and then our council to provide you with the appropriate bylaws regarding the weighted votes and how it's implemented. If you have a procedural problem with that, please bring it forward. But we have spent a lot of non-transportation time on an item that has not caused any problems for this agency or anyone else. We are now moving on to item 6, receive our transportation providers reports. And we'll start with Caltrans. So we had to deal with all that.
Oh, no problem. In the interest of time, I'm just only going to talk about one item. As most of you are aware, recently we had a slip out at Rocky Creek on Highway 1. Just wanted to give you a quick update on that. Right now we have work crews out there putting in micro piles. They've already successfully put them in vertically, and now they have somebody hanging off a basket on a crane and it's actually putting them in horizontally with the idea of stabilizing the one lane that still exists, with the effort to actually put in a one lane signalized location there so that eventually we won't need flaggers. It will just operate on its own as one lane. And then in the meantime, we are furiously working on a long-term solution, which is likely to be a viaduct or basically a bridge that will go across this location to reopen the 2 lanes as fast as we can. So with that, that's it.
Any questions or comments on that? All right, next is the airport. You have someone from the airport on? No, I do not see them. Carl from MST.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Effective May 25th, Memorial Day weekend, MSP has some major service changes going into effect that will, contingent upon action taken by the city of Monterey at their May 7th meeting, will include the restart of the trolley. MST trolley will start again, hopefully on weekend, May 25th. And we are also incorporating the 20 new drivers that we recently graduated out of our training course into the service area. That will help us increase on-time performance issues, particularly in the morning and afternoon peaks between Salinas and Monterey, on our line 20. We'll also be through some schedule changes, making better connections to the Caltrain, catching an earlier train on the line 59 up in Gilroy. So there'll be more bus to train connection options up into the Bay Area effective that weekend, as well as the implementation of service between the Alisal and Parkville campuses. Line 47 will be implemented. So we're looking forward to that. We've been really successful, and as I mentioned, just graduated 20 new coach operators, and we have 11 more starting training in the next couple of weeks. That doesn't mean, though, that we're not still hiring. So from the shameless recruitment department of MST, I'll use my time to say that we have positions open for a social media person, customer service representatives, a risk and security manager, mechanics, and utility service personnel to wash and fuel our vehicles. So check us out at mst.org. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Monterey Bay Air Resource District. I think we have David Frisbee online.
Yes, hello. Yeah, just a couple things. We have our motor vehicle emission reduction grants program. Applications are open on May 1st. This is for grants to fund bicycle infrastructure, EV charging, infrastructure, and light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicle electrification replacement projects. So that's starting up pretty quick. We also have received a notice of funding from the Air Resources Board to work on a hybrid electric whale watching vessel out of Moss Landing Harbor. It's $2.2 million that for the grant. It's going to be a 57-foot catamaran that has 49 passengers, can carry 49 passengers, and it will be operated and owned by Monterey Bay Eco Tours. And that's a 2-year project. So we should be seeing that come out in 2 years. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, David. All right, we'll move on to item 7, reports of meetings attended by board members at Transportation Agency expense. Did we have any board members or transportation members? Executive Director's report.
Thank you. Thank you. I did want to announce that for the US 101 South of Salinas project, we had a public meeting in East Salinas earlier this month. And on April 29th, we're going to have a listening session in Chular in the evening on that project. If any city councils would like a presentation on the project, we'd be happy to come and talk to you and get your feedback. We did make a presentation to the city of Gonzales earlier this month as well. One last item. Early at the end of last year, AB 2449 was approved where boards members could participate remotely. And at the time, the agency took a position to not implement AB 2449 and follow the traditional Brown Act process. When Shane Strong came on board as our counsel, we talked through, this is one of the issues we talked about, the county council in general has changed their recommendation on this and asked that, or suggest that we do follow the 2449 process to allow just cause in certain circumstances for board members to participate remotely. So I just wanted to share that. So from here on out, we will be following the 2449 process. If a board member has any need to participate remotely, they need to follow the just cause process to if it's appropriate. And then there's our limitations on how frequently that can be used. We do still need to have a physical quorum at the location before we can have too many members that are participating remotely. But I just wanted to share that we will be moving forward with that 2449 process from here on out. And that concludes my report.
All right. So now we're going to just do announcements, comments, or other matters that they wish to put on transportation agency agendas, board members.
Just a real quick announcement. The County of Monterey is releasing our housing element on May 9th. So there'll be a 30-day comment period. The reason that's relevant to TAMC is that, of course, when we plan future housing and under corporate Monterey County, we have to at least meet, I think, 3,300 units of housing over the next 7 years. So just wanted to let everybody know that document will be released and it'll have the maps of where planned growth is in the unincorporated county.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, we adjourn this meeting at 11:25. Thank you, everyone.